Due Process, recipient of 6 Mid-Atlantic Emmy Awards.
My oldest here is 8. My 2 youngest, 4 and 2.
And they are with her, not in a place you'd expect to call home, but instead in a drug rehab, keeping families together while mother gets clean, learning how to be a parent while learning how to live without drugs. That's next on this edition of Due Process.
Major funding for Due Process provided by the New Jersey State Bar Foundation, committed to educating the public about the law, and by the Fund for New Jersey, a private foundation focusing on New Jersey public policy issues. Additional funding provided by Lawyer's Diary and Manual and online legal reference, elaw.com.
Treating addiction is never easy, but when the addict is a woman and a mother, it becomes that much more difficult. Residential rehab is said to be the most effective cure, but if mom goes away to get healthy, where does that leave the kids? I'm Raymond Brown, and our focus on this edition of Due Process, a new kind of drug rehab, one that sends children inside with their mothers. We'll hear the pros and cons from some experts here in the studio, but first here's Sandy King with the Matri Ark Inside Story.
Raymond, the story begins with a recovering alcoholic and his wife, who 30 years ago opened their home to friends who were also trying to dry out. But that very personal kind of program turned into a major New Jersey institution with a cutting-edge approach to the treatment of women addicts, who also happen to be mothers, all in marked contrast to the image of family that so many of us grew up on.
Mother and I are proud of you. Very proud.
Life was likely never so simple. Few families ever so ideal.
You know, suddenly I'm hungry, Mom.
So am I. Coconut cake?
And milk, too.
But even if home doesn't look quite like this, if single-parent families are nearly the norm,
Mommy.
this kind of family life would still be somewhat startling. A mother and children whose temporary home is neither house nor apartment, but rather institution.
Everyone, Parker House people, this is Gwen.
The kind usually entered alone and in crisis.
I'm thinking booze. Cocaine.
Painkillers.
Residential drug and alcohol rehab is almost always a solo affair.
What's your drug of choice?
A single substance abuser, along with others similarly addicted, struggling toward recovery, even if that means leaving others back home.
My family members, it was like, and really my son at the most, because he doesn't know me, was like a real bad pain in my heart.
Ideally, if you can work with the mother alone for a few months in treatment before she gets the child. If you can, that's I think ideal, because this way she has her own issues, and she's not going to be able to focus as much on those issues if the child is there 24/7.
But here at Seabrook House in rural Cumberland County, a program fittingly called Matri Ark is keeping children with their mothers, even inside a drug rehab.
I didn't realize that then, but now that I'm clean, that there's a much more to parenting than just clothing them, bathing them, taking them to school and dressing them.
This is one of the safest places that my child had been since I had been his mother.
Jackie Hinton was one of Matri Ark's first success stories. She let go of her addiction and held on to her kids.
Because of my addiction, my family had been broken up. My children were removed from me, And with them being here, it just made it feel more comfortable that my family was still intact and that I had something to work towards.
And her work went so well that she is still here in Matri Ark, not as one of the patients, but as their therapist.
Next week, next month, or you would get money from someone else.
When I'm using, I don't have any power over the drugs at all.
Loss of my children, being able to spend time with my children when I wanted to spend time with my children, lack of paying my bills.
The great part about being here is that I get to know myself and to be responsible. You know, that you could take care of your kids on your own, and, you know, you don't have to have nobody to help you.
And that, of course, is the challenge. What may work just fine in the shelter of the rehab could become unhinged back in the world.
I'm concerned about what happens after these engagements, because the long run is always where the problem is.
And that's true even when there are no kids involved. Dave Kerr runs New Jersey's largest drug rehab, one that doesn't have children living inside, though the women here too tend to have kids and to need support post-rehab.
And you go to your D group,
Yes.
and then you graduate.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm also coming back to sing with you in the choir.
I know you are.
But their mother and child reunion has to wait till after they leave the rehab.
No, I would not give you false hope.
A process that Matri Ark brings inside, with the promise that when they leave here, they won't be entirely on their own.
It's only emotion.
Our hope is that we can habilitate and rehabilitate to help the ladies get on their feet and be able to take care of their children, get gainful employment, education, etc. And it's happening. We have a very good recovery rate, somewhere around 65%.
Peg Deal and her husband founded Seabrook House 30 years ago. Then it was a place for alcoholics. But what it became was a place to find freedom from drink and drugs. And 12 years ago, the first child became a part of the process.
Everything surrounds your children and you, and becoming a mother again, along with working with your addiction.
Right now, we probably have about 15 to 18 families. We're going to have a new center built here next year, and we're then going to have 36 families. And it's going to be known as the Matri Ark Center. So it's a dream come true. It really is.
Mother and child reunion is only emotion away.
A mother and child reunion that may or may not be the lasting kind. At Seabrook House, not every Matri Ark case is a success story, but the state of New Jersey is putting its money on Matri Ark, $3 million from the Department of Human Services to help pay for a new state-of-the-art facility for 36 women and their children who can be up to 12 years old. Their stay as long as 1 year, followed by a second year of aftercare. The theory being that by the time they're actually on their own, they are long past addiction and really ready to be mothers.
And when we come back, we'll look at the scarcity of drug treatment options open to women with or without kids here in New Jersey. So stay with us.
Not during the detox. Maybe the rehabilitation once they've started on it, if they show good intentions. If not, I think the children should be taken away.
I don't know if the environment that they're living in is going to be something healthy for the children to experience.
I wouldn't want children to be exposed to that type of atmosphere.
I think it would help the children and it would help them, you know, to let them know that they do have kids. And they would have to change their life in order to be with them, you know, for good.
They're under 5, they really don't know what's going on, but if they're above that age, to see their mom, I just don't think they should be there.
I strongly believe the mother and the child need to be, reunited together to keep the family together very strong.
I mean, it's real, and it's no sense in hiding that from kids. And maybe, in a way, that'll help kids not to grow up to be like their moms and end up in the same place.
Children inside a drug rehab? It's still a new idea and not universally accepted, but does it work? And should it be the new standard? We'll put those questions and more to Carol Ann Cain-Caviola, Assistant Commissioner in the state's Division of Addiction Services, to Jonette Townsend, a registered nurse at Interim House, a drug rehab for women in Philadelphia, and to Dr. Christine Baker, a clinical psychologist and past president of the New Jersey chapter of the American Professional Society on Abuse of Children, who is with us from Newark. Welcome to all of you. Let me start with you, Carol Ann, because this is, I think, to non-specialists a new idea. And what is it that makes you believe that this mode of treatment with the mother and child together is best both for the mother who is fighting an addiction and for the child?
Well, we know that for sure. We have evidence and research that points to the fact that women with an option to bring their children to treatment will have one less barrier. And what we all know is that access and less barriers to treatment that is specialized for women is important to recovery and gives us a better
Let me follow up a little bit on what you said, because it seems to me that one could say if a person has been struggling with addiction, they may view the task of parenthood as really another object at that moment they have to overcome. So why wouldn't it potentially be at least that this is two battles a person's being asked to fight at one time, when at the moment they're not equipped to win either one?
Well, I think it's important to realize that it's not the woman bringing her child to treatment without supports. The program that we have set up, the one that you're speaking about in terms of Matri Ark, have an incredible amount of support. Those women are not managing their children alone. They are managing them in a group. They have a multidisciplinary team. They are away from their child at least 7 or 8 hours a day in therapy. So these are larger programs, more highly qualified staff. This is, we have really tailor-made treatment.
A lot of food for thought. Jonette, what is your thought about this idea of really from the beginning of the treatment having the child present and involved with the mother?
I think overall children are very, they can come back from a lot, and one of the things that we recognize at our program is that our women and their children have been through a lot of abuse, horrendous stories we've heard several times over. And one of the things that we recognize is that women aren't necessarily ready to parent, because sometimes they haven't been parented their own selves. They are just learning how to just deal with life on life's terms. They're coming out of prison, they're coming off the streets, and they have horrendous abuse that has stunted them. And sometimes their children have been abused in the situations that they were in.
So let me follow up a little bit on your perspective. Then I assume that you wouldn't agree that a child with the mother is good from the beginning. Would you integrate the child into the process along the way, or would you say until we've gotten a real handle on the addiction, a woman is probably not ready to resume responsibilities of motherhood?
Absolutely. We tend to focus on where the woman is at the time. And you don't want to re-injure children. If they're in a safe place, we feel that it's best that they stay there until mom is ready to be a parent, or at least learn how to be a parent, because sometimes they really, like I said, they're not even ready to parent their children. And it's another stressor.
Christine, let me bring you into the conversation. Thus far, we've focused naturally enough on the mother struggling with this addiction. Let me for a moment shift perspectives and ask, especially given your background, from the child's point of view, and I know this is a generalization covering a whole host of ages, is a child better served by being involved with the process of the mother's struggle to overcome addiction from the beginning, or is that potentially dangerous?
Well, I'd like to first of all comment on some of the things that have been said, and then answer your question. One of which is that because people have substance abuse problems, they never stop being a mother. They never stop being a parent. So it's not as if it's an additional stressor. I mean, it's always been a part of who they are. So we really can't, take part of the person and treat that part and negate another part. And so I feel strongly that children should be with their parents from the beginning. And I think some of the perceptions that have been voiced by even at least public opinion, the people who were interviewed on the streets, people really kind of think that children will be in these programs and they'll be exposed to the horrors of substance abuse. And it's quite the contrary. That is that kids are more protected while they're with their parents in some type of safe haven, rather than, for instance, in some of the places that they are in foster care or in other places.
Christine, let me throw out a variable to you that I'm also going to share with our guests here in the studio, and that is there a difference between a mother who's had some success at parenting and then falls into drug addiction and seeks help, as opposed to some women who probably have never been able to get a handle on parenting for a variety of reasons, maybe including drug addiction, in terms of the process of integrating them from the beginning with their children in rehab? That is there a difference in how you treat somebody who was doing all right with parenting until drugs came into their lives versus somebody who's never been able to really master parenting?
Yes, I would say definitely there's a difference, and that's probably the most important part of a comprehensive program where there's some substance abuse treatment related services for children as well as their parents. If in fact someone already has been able to provide good enough parenting, it's not as difficult for them, in terms of a relapse, in terms of substances or whatever other kinds of stresses that may be going on with them. But if in fact they've never been able to parent their children because of either substance abuse or other social or family problems like domestic violence or other kinds of things that interfere with good enough parenting, clearly they need more services. So one of the things is, on an outpatient basis or with visits that occur when parents are one place and children are another, they're never able to integrate and practice the art of parenting. So if you wait until they're recovered, it presents another problem.
Let me pose the same question to each of you, but with one additional factor, and that is the question of what are the alternatives? That is, would it make a difference in the decision, Jonette, for example, if you had both the question of whether the mother had successfully parented before and the question of whether the person's going to be with family members who can really nurture the child properly, or in foster care, which raises a whole lot of other potential problems? Would that make a difference in the decision-making process about when to integrate the child?
I would say it would make a difference, but again, it depends on the system that's in place to support them. I certainly agree that they are always parents, but I still believe that at what point are we really harming the children, bringing them? The environment of addiction and recovery, it's not necessarily a traumatic one, but there are a lot of traumatic things that come up for these women in treatment, in dealing with why they started using drugs in the beginning. And sometimes, okay, this mom may be okay, or she may be doing great, but there might be 2 or 3 other moms who are not doing great. And I just question whether or not that's an appropriate placement for a child to have to deal with, who's been through whatever already.
Carolyn, let me combine what we've talked about and give you a tough hypothetical from the point of view. Even with all the support, let's assume you have a mother who had never really effectively parented the child before, and also the option of a loving grandmother who could really effectively raise the child, so we're not concerned about the vagaries of foster care. Wouldn't that raise any question in your mind as to whether this integration process ought to take place from the very beginning?
I'm going to tell you that New Jersey prides itself, our division prides itself on trying very hard to match people to the appropriate treatment. Men, women, adolescents, pregnant women, women with children. This is one of the essential ingredients, is when we do an assessment, that the assessment is thorough, that our programs are able to make these kinds of decisions, and that the woman has a say in this. Many women do not ask to go to treatment where they can bring their children because they have.
So let me jump in. So then you're not saying that this is for all women who are mothers, treatment with child involved. It's only for some subset of the population of women who are addicted and have children.
Absolutely.
And can you guess what? I would assume that the majority of women who have addiction problems do have children.
Yes.
Of that universe, what percentage do you think are going to be helped by this process of integration from the beginning?
Women whose children are very young, pregnant women who will be having their first child. This is, I think, women that we know will be reunited.
But I think we go potentially up to age 12 in Matrix.
We do go up to
So
age
I guess
12.
the question I'm looking at is, if we look at the broader question of how do we help women, is this going to help a majority of women addicts potentially with children, or some smaller percentage of it?
I think it will help the majority of women that have young children. It will be an opportunity for them to receive treatment and to do all of the things that they have to do, because you can't compartmentalize yourself.
All right. Let me ask you this. there has got to be a dollar figure attached to this. And I hate to do it, but in a matter of social policy like this, how could we ignore it?
Right.
Let's assume that you're right, that a majority of women with children can be helped in this process. What's the cost for a year of this kind of treatment per person?
We look at the treatment in terms of, I think, 6-month segments with a continuation up to a year.
All right.
We are looking at least a $72,000 treatment episode.
Right. All right. The numbers, I looked at just Seabrook's numbers, and it looked like it came for a year to about 195,000 based on just their general numbers. So in that range of numbers, do you think either the legislature or what we know about private health care systems would be willing to pay those costs if that's what it takes to help a majority of women with children? And I know it's hard to ask somebody in the executive branch what the legislature is talking about, but really, are these numbers that are realistic as a way going forward?
I absolutely think they're realistic. There are an incredible amount of costs, not just the drug treatment costs, that go into sustaining a family when people are separated. So you have foster care costs, you have education costs, daycare, child care. When you put that together, this is a bargain.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that.
Go ahead,
yes.
Christine.
Yes. You know, oftentimes if we look at the cost to society as well as cost to families, generally speaking, I mean, in some programs around the country as well as in New Jersey, and some are high end and some are lower end, but generally length of stay in a particular program will kind of dictate how effective the outcome measures are in terms of increased ability to take care of their children after, to not have the people incarcerated, as one of our guests said, as well as abstinence from the drugs. So the longer the program are, and the costs are.
But let me ask you the bottom line question. I mean, obviously the legislative process or getting private health care to pay is a complicated one, but I'm saying realistically, if the majority of drug rehab folks were to conclude at the end of this year that this is the way to go, is it going to be available for the majority of women that need it, or are we now talking about a massive campaign to find resources to match this?
Well, what I'm trying to say is that the cost for, let's say, a child born with fetal alcohol abuse syndrome, that child, the prenatal costs and hospitalization, et cetera, will certainly bypass the amount that will cost for an infant and a child to be housed together in a residential treatment center.
I'm saying your answer is very sophisticated from a policy point of view, and I'm not quarreling with it. I'm simply saying realistically, my own experience with legislatures and with the arguments about health care are that I don't think a lot of people are going to be easily responsive to that. Let me ask Jonette, what is the cost per person in the program that you work, roughly? You don't have to give us the exact dollar figure. For
Roughly
6 months or
for 6 months, we're talking $2,000. Probably somewhere 35, 40,000.
So that would be a half to a third of what we're talking about. And my point is that the arguments you talk about overall society costs are costs that I suspect wouldn't get disagreement here. But the question is, are legislators or private healthcare companies likely, without a lot more lobbying and work, to say, okay, we're going to make this available to everybody who needs it?
But I think the figure that she just gave certainly does not include the cost of foster care.
Okay.
So children who are by themselves in these type of programs that don't allow the families to be together, we have all these exorbitant costs. Children who are being housed outside the home, and all the other kinds of problems that they have with counseling, Medicaid. There's so many more costs that are. So if you look at the total
let me ask
picture,
Carolyn, who's in state government, do you think that you wanted to say something?
I wanted to say that the New Jersey legislature, as well as the executive branch, made a commitment to expanding treatment for women to bring their children.
So if the majority of women with children need this kind of treatment, is the money going to be there?
The money is there, and they have put in an incredible amount of money into it, and I think that they are willing
for everybody
to grow.
who needs it.
No, we don't have treatment on demand for anyone.
So the bottom line is that there is a massive amount of public education that's going to be required in order to go from here to that point.
But I think that we've done a lot of education. I think there is a lot of willingness, and programs like Matri Ark make this a lot easier for us.
And Jeanette, I'm assuming even at the level of cost you're talking about, there isn't a space available for everybody in Pennsylvania who needs the treatment you
Absolutely not. That's why you introduce things like the FSC, Family Services Coordinator from Children Protective Services, who come into the facility, who actually work in our facilities and can facilitate parenting and things like that.
Well, this discussion has raised some really profound possibilities and questions, but we have to leave it there with our thanks to Dr. Christine Baker, to Jonette Townsend, and to Carolyn Kane Caviola. But before we go, some good news for due process. Sandy's mini doc on needle exchange is the winner for Best Public Affairs Reporting from the Philadelphia Press Association and runner-up for the New York Deadline Club's Best Feature, while the entire needle exchange program has been named the best of the best by the New Jersey Broadcasters Association. Still another reason to join us here again next week for another cutting-edge issue of law and social justice. Till then, for Sandy King and all of us here, I'm Raymond Brown. Thanks for watching.
I would probably be in jail or dead or in some institution. The Matri Ark program has saved my life.
Instead of getting clean, I went further into my addiction. It's when it got worse. Then when I had my son, it just got so bad. You know what I mean? You have to finally surrender.
Actually, I'm just grateful to be alive and to have a chance again to be with my kids.
If you learn to look at yourself and change, you'll make it. But if you can't, it has to start within you, because you're not here because you're producing, okay, in society, you're a problem to society and yourself and your children.
If there are any drug-addicted mothers that do happen to see, I would just recommend that they check out Seabrook House, because it's changed my life.
Major funding for due process provided by the New Jersey State Bar Foundation, committed to educating the public about the law, and by the Fund for New Jersey, a private foundation focusing on New Jersey public policy issues. Additional funding provided by Lawyer's Diary and Manual and online legal reference, elaw.com.
Yeah, this will say and hello, Christine?
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. I'm sorry you didn't get to finish.